Thank you for joining early, guys. Just doing a bit quick sound check. If you could type in the chat if you can hear me okay. Okay, thank you, Lisa. Everyone's coming through. Much appreciated. Guys, thanks for joining early. We'll be kicking off in approximately 5 minutes. So feel free to grab a drink of water and we'll start fairly promptly. Okay, it's hit 2 p.m. I'm going to give it 30 more seconds to let any last strugglers a chance to join, and we'll start ever so promptly. Thank you again. Okay, guys, let's kick it off. You should see me now. Just move this spot over there. So just type in the Zoom chat or in the webinar chat that you're ready to go. Just type in ready to go or ready, whatever. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Peter, Daniel. Okay, names are just pouring through. Someone's giving me a smiley face. Thanks, Katie. Let's kick it off. Now, in today's webinar on Agentbox tips and tricks, my name is Richard. My stage name is Ricardo. Now, during today's webinar, helping me will be the lovely Natasha Romanov and the very wise Alexander Nicole. Now, today we're going to be covering tips, a few tips and tricks for master users and administration, and quite a few tips and tricks for agents. Now, this webinar is approximately 45 minutes to 50 minutes long. If you have any questions during the session, please use the Q&A box on the Zoom panel, and our team will endeavour to answer your question. Now, before we start the webinar, it's worth stating there's just two reasons on why we use Agentbox or any CRM. Two reasons only. And those two reasons, the first is to save time. And the second is to make money. And everything that we do in Agentbox, really, if you think about it, comes down and falls in under one of these two topics. Now, Agentbox can be a powerhouse of a sales engine to assist you in achieving both goals. A CRM, used well, assists you to communicate with more people, more consistently, and with the right message. In this webinar, I may bring a number of things to your attention. However, it's likely I'll also raise a few other questions as well. So with that said, my first tip and trick or tip is really just talking about the help center in the bottom right-hand corner. And it's quite surprising when I do training with agents, how many staff haven't actually used a help center. Now, this first tip is applicable for all attendees of this webinar. So if you click the question mark down the bottom right-hand corner, if you click into webinar options, you'll see the rest of the webinars we're doing for the rest of this year. We've already just released them. But what I want to bring to your attention is view user manual, or you can click I need help doing something and view user manual. Now, the user manual is like the Agentbox Google. You can type in a question, a search term, put in a word, etc. For example, if you want to learn how to build an email template, type in create email template. I'll often give you a little video and step-by-step instructions. Next, now with this webinar, all of our past webinars are actually stored in the user manual. So if you want to come back and review this webinar because you can't remember everything, go to the question mark, into the user manual. And if you want to find today's webinar, you just search on tips and tricks in here and you'll find that the webinar. Or if you just type in webinar, and this is the next trick, you can find some of our past webinars we've done. And here's a webinar I did on the prospector tool at the start of the year. The hit list webinar shows you how you can create a hit list of contacts that you want to categorize and communicate to down the track. Your sphere of influence, your hot sellers, your hot buyers, etc. So there's some really good webinars in here. Next, from the question mark, if you've worked through the user manual and you can't find what the answer is, just click I need help doing something and submit an inquiry to support. Now, the next few tips are more applicable for master users and administrators, after which I'll focus on tips and tricks for the agents. Now, the next thing I want to cover is the Agentbox Academy. This is where you can register new staff to your business for Agentbox e-learning as part of your onboarding process. Week 1, register for them a course register them for an e-learning course, and in week 1 they need to complete that just to complement your own onboarding process. To access the Agentbox Academy, go to the question mark, I need help doing something, and purchase an Agentbox Academy course. Book training, select the relevant job role for your new staff member, for example, sales agent. And the first course is the one that gives you the most, often will give you what you're after for your new starter joining your business. And if you click into it, it tells you the topics that are included as part of that e-learning. So many clients are now, this is part of their standard process. They get a new staff member, they'll register their staff member for this training. Next thing I want to talk about is the pipeline. And again, I'm more focusing on an administrator or a master user at this point. So the pipeline up here, generally speaking, as an agent, this is an agent's pipeline. When they come in here, they can see the appraisals they've done, properties they've won where they're pending and they're not yet online. There are available listings right through to properties that are unconditional, etc. Now, as an administrator, often I find administrators, when you look at the pipeline, they're just seeing a heap of zeros. And that's because they don't have any appraisals themselves or any listings themselves. So if you've got the relevant reporting permissions turned on your staff card, you can change up the pipeline over here. So you could filter, change up the pipeline to see the pipeline for your particular office. And now for this office, we've got 12 available properties. And you want to do it in 2 spots. In the pipeline, you can change up, you can see it for a particular agent or for a particular office, and you can filter down and you can see your rental pipeline. But you also want to change it up in notifications. So I'll just change that to Ricardo, but same thing, the notifications panel shows key dates for your sales campaigns, and this is applicable for sales agents as well. So as an administrator, you won't have any, but for an administrator, you might change this up to view the key notifications for your particular office. And I'll show you anything that's upcoming in the next 7 days. I've got 2 expected settlements. Here they are. On today's date, I've got 2 properties that are going to settle or expected to settle today. And overdue, I've got 4 properties where the settlement date has passed in Agentbox, but it hasn't yet been settled. So potentially it has settled, but we haven't marked it as such in Agentbox. Now we want to be doing this and making sure we're settling our listings. And I've come across some agencies where I check overdue and they've got 100 properties where the expected settlement date's passed. They're likely to have settled. They haven't settled them in Agentbox. When you do settle the listing, it automatically adds a purchaser to the property as a new owner moving forward. So we want to be settling our listings in Agentbox. The next thing I want to briefly cover, and I'll go to one of my pending listings. So this is the property that I'm preparing to advertise online. If we go to the General tab, briefly just want to talk about the vendor preview link, and I'm sure many people are using this, but you've put in the photos, you've updated the copy, you want to have a quick look, a review to see how this property will look before you advertise it online. Click the vendor preview link. You can see the photos you've attached to the property. You can see videos you've attached to the listing of a attached a South Park video, floor plans, etc. So you can get no idea of how it looks, but you can also copy this URL and send it to the vendor. So if I was to copy that, prior to going live, I could just send a quick email to my vendor, quick email to the vendor. Write up what I want to say, let her know it's ready to go to do a quick proof before we advertise online, and I'll send that off. So that's from the vendor preview link. And if you're happy with it, you could copy that URL. You could send it via SMS. You could send it via email. The next one I want to cover is, and I go to an available listing. I go to one of my available listings, 190 of 120 City Road. And when you mark it available and you change the status and you mark it available, and then you go down and select the relevant portals that you're feeding through to, realestate.com and domain. And if you want to see, when you change this, it's going to take about anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour to feed up to REA and domain. Now, if you want to see if it has successfully fed up, you don't need to manually log into or open up another browser to log into REA or search REA. You can access REA or domain directly from this icon, which is called Portal Feed Logs. So if you click this icon in the listing, it will show you all the recent times it's been fed up online. So you can see the most recent feed was on the 22nd of April and the time it was processed. And if I click this property portal ID, it will take me directly to this property on REA or domain. Just click the little arrow here to switch between realestate.com and domain. If there was any error messages preventing a feed going online, you'll see that message just here. The next thing, if you log into Agentbox and you see this red exclamation mark next to your name in the top right-hand corner, that's a prompt to let you to check your portal logs. You've got some errors that's preventing you feeding online. So if you click check portal logs, you can see I've got two errors, one for 50 Training Street, one for 31 Test Avenue, and it's telling me the error that's preventing it from feeding online. Next thing I want to cover briefly is when we settle a listing in Agentbox. So I'm going to search for one of my settled listings. And I'll search for 74 Trust Road. So the staff that are responsible for settling the listing, they will know how to do this. They'll go to the Offers and Contracts tab and they'll click the Settle button and settle the listing. Once the listing's been settled, we want to be reviewing both the contact card for the purchaser and the vendor. So once I have indeed settled this listing, I want to click through to the contact card for the buyer and the vendor. And this is often a step which is often missed. So with Jenny, once we're in the contact card, things we want to double check is, firstly, double check the address. Agentbox isn't going to assume that Jenny's moving into the property. So if she is moving into 74 Trust Road, I'll update that. etc. I'll just change up the address. I won't do it now. Then I'll remove any contact classes which we know that are no longer applicable. And because she's purchased this property and she's moving into 74 Trust Road, she's not an investor. I'll take out, she's no longer a prospective buyer. Now, other things many agencies will check. They might check assigned staff and potentially change up assigned staff depending on your internal business rules. Other things I might check, are they subscribed to newsletters? And finally, with a buyer, if they're no longer looking, I would definitely come in and delete all of their buying requirements. Because when someone inquires on inspects a property, they're often receiving automated future emails as a result of their buying requirements. So I don't want this person to unsubscribe down the track, because I want to be able to bulk communicate to them down the track as an owner. So let's just delete those. So again, the key things I'm checking really for a purchaser, I'd click into the contact card. The key things is really double checking the address, updating that if they're moving into the property, removing any contact classes that you know that are no longer applicable, and I would definitely come in and delete their buying requirements. And I'll repeat the same thing with the owner. So if I click into the vendor's contact card, this owner used to live in the property, they no longer live in the property, they don't own any other properties. So obviously I would delete the address. The address on the contact card is their mailing address. So I don't want to be sending mail to the wrong. So I'll delete that address or put in a forwarding address if I do know it. And I'll remove any contact classes that are no longer applicable. So they don't own any other properties. So they're no longer a vendor, a prospective vendor, or even an owner. They're now just the past owner. You can add additional contact classes based on your internal processes, but just it's a good chance to remove the contact classes which are no longer applicable. And again, depending on your business rules, you can double check assigned staff, and maybe I'll double check, are they indeed subscribed to newsletters, so I can bulk communicate to them down the track. The key thing when you settle the listing, and we mark that listing as settled, is don't try and change it all from here. Don't try and add to this settled listing Jenny Smith as the vendor. I'm not going to add her as the vendor. For this particular listing, this settled listing, Jenny Smith was always the buyer. Neville Jordan was always the vendor. The key thing is once you've settled the listing, click into the contact card and review from the contact card. Really important process to ensure that you're incorporating that within your business. Next thing I want to cover, another little tip, which is a bit of functionality, which is quite popular for the agents and businesses that are using it. And that is email to CRM, also known as BCC to CRM. This functionality allows you to capture email communication in Agentbox from emails that you've sent from your Outlook or from your Gmail. So as long as the recipient of the email is a contact in Agentbox, this functionality will allow you to capture that sent email. Now, master users can enable this. There's no cost to do this. So a master user will simply go to configuration, system config, and in system configuration, email to CRM. Now, once you turn that on, every agent will have their own unique BCC email address. So thereafter, it could be an administrator that does that. You go into each agent's staff card, So go to Ricardo. And just down there under the email, every agent will have a unique BCC email address. So I'd copy that, I'd send that to the agent, etc. Now, really how it works, if I'm sending an email from Outlook to a client and I know that client's in Agentbox, I would just add this BCC email address into the BCC. So I'm sending the email to the client, I'm also sending it to Agentbox, and that email communication stored against a contact. Yeah, your Outlooks and that, they remember, if you keep using that, the first time you'll just paste it in, the second time you just remember, type in BCC, it will remember because it's a previously used one, email that you've used. Now, if you want more information on how to use BCC or how to set it up and you forget what I've covered just here, let's just go to the question mark, into the user manual, and just type in the phrase BCC. So there's some troubleshooting, email to CRM, getting started, and how it works. So now let's look at some quick tips and tricks for agents. First, I want to look at some tips and tricks using the app, and then we'll go back to the desktop. Now, the first tip is, even if you're not using the app now, make sure you download it. 100% every agent wants to download the app. Now, if you've got an Apple phone, go to the Apple Store. If you've got an Android phone, go to the Google Play Store, search on Agentbox, download the app. Once you've downloaded the app, the first thing you want to enable is caller ID. Now, to enable caller ID, basically, you click the three dots, bottom right-hand corner of the app. You go into settings, caller ID, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. So just read through the instructions in step 1, complete the instructions, then step 2, you can turn that on. And what that means is if someone is in Agentbox and they call you, their name's going to flash up on your phone. John Smith, under it will say Agentbox. Now, if this person inquired last night over the internet via REA or domain, same thing. Next thing in the morning, if they call you, again, their name is going to flash up on the screen. John Smith, Agentbox. So again, to enable your caller ID, click the three dots, bottom right-hand corner, settings, caller ID. And if you haven't done that already, put it down as an action item to do after this webinar. So now let's look a bit more about some of the extra functionality in the app that people often aren't using. Often agents may be using the app more predominantly to add their open for inspection, open home attendees. But from the app, you can add and you can action tasks, call reminders. You can book private inspections, book appraisals. There's so much more you can do. So firstly, from the home screen, quick drink of water. From the home screen, this shows you today all of my tasks and appointments, my tasks and events. My events being an appraisal, an open for inspection, etc. And I can work through and I can make those calls. If I just want to see my tasks, I'll tap on the Tasks tab to focus on tasks only. If I just want to see my events, my upcoming events, I'll tap that tab. Now we'll come back to the home screen later in this session. The magnifying glass is where we can search for contacts. I could search for an individual contact up here. I could search for a mobile number. I could search for a listing, all from that top field. If I want to search for a group of contacts or a group of listings or a group of appraisals, tap into each of these. So if I tap into listings, these are my upcoming opens. I'm not sure if I've got any booked at the moment. These are my listings and all listings across the business. Now, if you tap into here and you see settled listings, you see unconditional listings, I just want to bring to your attention this little icon, top left-hand corner. This is the filter option. And from here, you can filter down. Maybe you just want to see your current stock list. So you might filter down to properties that are for sale, that are currently available. And if you're in a branch network, you've got multiple different offices all in the same Agentbox CRM, you may just want to see the available stock for your office. And that will now filter down to the current stock list for my particular office. If you want to tap into properties, and this is a really great tip, if you're putting your owners and your properties into Agentbox, if I go to the magnifying glass, tap into properties, you can see your properties that you've got a relationship with the owners. You can see all properties across the database. But if you tap the filter in the top left-hand corner, you can filter down. And maybe you're standing in front of the signboard. You've just sold the property and you've just put up the just sold sticker. You could search for all of the properties within a 1 kilometre, 3 kilometre, 5 kilometre radius of where you're standing. And if I've sold a property, I could now work through, I could give Sophie a call, I could give Neville a call, John, etc. So again, that's from the magnifying glass. I'll tap into properties. I want to filter these properties in the top left-hand corner. And I can search for all of the properties within a radius of where I'm currently standing. But the key, and this is quite new functionality, is the plus button down the bottom. The plus button allows you to use this app on a daily basis. So if you're door knocking a street, you've just won a listing and you're door knocking the street, letting them know that you've just won the listing. If you meet an owner who wants to keep in touch, whilst you've got them in front of you, you could go in there and add their property. Enter their address, search for the contact. You can save and close. I often click save and view property. It will take me into the property record, and then I'll add a task to keep in touch. And we'll cover it briefly later. If you're after an open home, you're just about to jump in the car and the next door neighbour comes up to you and you have a really good conversation and you book an appraisal with that next door neighbour, we can click the plus button and book that appraisal. Enter the address, select the date and time of the agreed appointment and search for the contact and save and close. Other things from the plus button. If you receive an inquiry on one of your properties, someone calls you and they're inquiring on your property, you want to make sure you're capturing those because they'll create a contact card. They'll add buying requirements against that contact. They'll potentially, depending on your database, receive future automated emails on new listings that match their requirements. Plus, you could communicate to those buyers from that listing in bulk. So if, for example, if you've received an inbound call on one of your properties, plus log the inquiry, select your listing, or we'll use this one as an example, and then search for the contact. I'm just going to put in 0405 676 041. And I often suggest this, if you've never done this before, practice it with your own mobile number. Now, if you've already created a contact card in Agentbox, you'll find yourself and you can click the big green plus button and you can add that contact. If you're not in the database, you can just create a contact card for yourself. In this case, Tony Stark is in the database. The only mandatory is the inquiry comments. So called up and inquired on price. Now, if on that inbound call you book a private inspection, I'll do the same thing, except plus, rather than log that inquiry, book that private inspection. Exactly the same process. Select your listing first. Put in a mobile number. Again, practice it with your own mobile number. If they're not in the database, we can add a new contact. Go Mary Grigg Lot. And then I can select the date and time of the appointment. I could save and add another private inspection or simply save. Now, if you have booked a private inspection, oops, I've already put that one in there earlier before. But if I have booked a private inspection, if I click the plus button and I have booked an appraisal or I've booked a private inspection, if you have SMS credits, you could immediately send them an SMS confirmation of the appointment. So I know these upcoming appointments are in the home screen, and I'll just go to the events tab, which shows me all my upcoming events. And I'll go to that private inspection and I'll just tap onto it and I could send an SMS appointment confirmation. Hi, it'll merge in their first name, confirming your appointment for the date and time. And I'll also send them a digital brochure, essentially, and I'll send that off. Really nice touch on the back of that phone call. Same thing, I could click the appraisal. I could send an SMS appointment confirmation for the appraisal. Also from the plus button, when I want to call key clients, don't call them from your phone. Don't go to your phone contacts, search your phone contacts and call. Make sure the app is on the home screen. So sometimes people download the app and they've got to swipe through 3 screens to get to the app. Make sure it's on the home screen at the most accessible point. But I'll click the app to call a key contact, click the plus button, and I'll make that call. And the reason I'm calling from here, after the call's finished, it'll automatically prompt you out a note. That note will be stored against a contact card, so you capture that intelligence, and it'll prompt you to add a future data task. So if I call my key client, and for example, let's call John Kite. I could call, SMS or email. I can search for the contact up the top, but let's give John a call. At the end of the call, you can log the outcome of the call. You can type in your note as applicable, or here's another tip. If you're someone who's a bit more like me, I'm not really good in sending text message, so I don't really send too many text. I use more voice to text. And if you ever send a voice to text SMS message to a friend or family member, this works the same way. So rather than manually type out the note, if you tap your finger in the headline or the description, it works in both. But if you tap your finger in the headline, it engages the microphone with your phone functionality. And you look for the microphone, you tap, you hold it down, and you could dictate the outcome of that call. Called to touch base, but I'll just type in training for now. Now, depending on the conversation, you'll add in your note and you may add a follow-up task. So in this case, based on this call, I'll put in the intel for this call and then a follow-up task, and he wants me to call him in 2 weeks' time. And I'm not going to call on the Tuesday, I'll call on the Wednesday. You can select the time for your tasks. Personally, I just action all the tasks on that applicable day. So again, if you're calling from Agentbox, and it just takes a little bit of practice, but agents, once they get onto it, it works for a lot of agents really well. After the call's finished, if you don't want to manually type it out, and you might be all over your keyboard, your phone pad, you might just type it out. But if you want to use the microphone, again, just tap your finger in the headline, look for the microphone, tap, hold it down, dictate the outcome of that call. And then add a follow-up task. Okay. Now I've covered about making a call and calling directly from the app, but let's talk about, we'll go back to the home page. The home page today, I've got 16 tasks and call reminders. Some of these are call reminders and tasks. Some are like events, such as an open appraisal, or an appraisal, an open for inspection, etc. If I just want to see my tasks, just tap tasks. Again, if I want to see the upcoming events, go there. But let's focus. I'm just going to focus on all of today's activity. I'm on the road and I want to make these calls. Now, these tasks, this home screen is really a replication of the reminders panel in your desktop. So today, Tuesday the 7th, you can see I've got a heap of tasks. Anything with the big green tick is a task. And I've got a couple of appointments, an appraisal and a private inspection. So I'm out and about. I'll open up the app on a daily basis to check, do I have any tasks in the home screen I need to action? To action a task, to call Calvin Smith, I just tap into it. I can call, I could SMS, I could email. In this case, let's call. Again, at the end of the call, you can enter your note as applicable. And depending on the conversation, you can add a follow-up task. In this case, I'm going to call again just prior to Christmas. Finally, if you successfully got through, you can mark this task as complete and it returns you to the home screen. So now let's go into the next task, which is a follow-up call with Henry Adams. Again, just tap in, make the call. After the call, if I'm successful in getting through to him, I'll mark that task as complete and it drops off. Then my next task, I need to organize a restraining order against my ex. It's a very sad story, but I don't have the time to do it right now. So if I tap into the task, I can snooze that task. And I'll do that restraining order. I'll do it next week and we'll do it next Friday. Now, if you snooze a task, don't mark it complete, just snooze it, click back to the list of the tasks and continue to work through. To add a task from the app, easy enough, click the plus button and you can add a task. Or if you're in a contact card, I'll just tap into a contact. From within a contact card in the app, you just go to the Tasks tab, click here, there'll be a green plus button and you can add a task down the bottom. Okay, so moving back to the desktop, and I just want to look at some quick tips and tricks in the desktop. Now, firstly, if you're working from a laptop, and I come across this quite a bit, sometimes I find agents are working out of a laptop and their screen looks like this. You can see just two panels, the targets panel, the reminders panel. I want to see, you should preferably want to see 4 panels here. So you can zoom in and out. So in the top right hand corner, I click these 3 dots. I can zoom in and out, and you can select your preferred font size, but at the very least, you want to make sure you can see 4 panels. So you can see your call, a greater visibility of your call reminders or your tasks, your key notifications for your sales campaigns, and any announcements or new announcements in regards to Agentbox. Now I'm going to quickly go into a contact card, and let's go into Jennifer Aniston. So if you're using the app to call, and you can log your calls in Agentbox as well, you're going to start to be creating in the left-hand panel for Jennifer. In Jennifer's left-hand panel, you're going to start to create a communication history. And you can see I've been calling Jennifer an awful lot. In fact, yesterday I called her 5 times and it looks like she's no longer answering my calls. So I sent her a little email saying I'm missing her. So in regards to communicating from a contact card, I'm in Jennifer's contact card. She's a lovely lady. If I wanted to shoot her an email, I can send her a quick email. If you want to build a template, you can select a template or even build a template. And if you want to learn how to build an email template, go to the question mark. But if I wanted to send her an email, still missing you. If you want to put an emoji into an email, and I wasn't even going to say this, but if you wanted to put an emoji into an email or into a template, etc., just press the Windows key and full stop on your keyboard. So Windows key, full stop, and then you type in a word. I'll type in sad and I'll put in some tears. Hi, Jen. Still missing you. And I'll send that off. Next tip, if you're not comfortable with your email signature, you can change that up. So talk to an administrator and you can have that amended and updated the way you would prefer. To learn how to update your email signature, again, if I go to the question mark, into the user manual, email signature. Cool, I'll close that down. Let's go back to Jennifer. So generally, if you're working out of the desktop and you pick up the phone, you give them a call, generally in Agentbox, I'm looking for the phone icon to log the outcome of the call and to start to generate a communication history to show my evidence, my relationship with this contact. So click the phone icon. Again, I might actually be calling direct from the app, or you might be behind a computer. You prefer to type your notes via a keyboard. Log the outcome of the call. Type in your note as applicable. And depending on the conversation, you can flag the outcome, whether you got through or where you didn't get through. In this case, we'll say no answer. The good thing about when you're entering notes in the desktop, the computer will remember your reoccurring headlines. So in the headline, I'll type out headlines that I want to use on a consistent basis. So C, called no answer, left message. And depending on the conversation, if I did get through, I would add a future data task potentially. If you wanted to add a task, it's not on the back of a phone call. You're looking for the circle, the tick. And from there, you can create a single task. Select the date you want to call. Put in your note as applicable. Save that task. And that task is going to pop through to the app on the nominated date. So again, if you wanted to add a task, you're looking for the circle with the tick, or after a phone call, you want to log the outcome of the call, you can click the phone icon, you can put the call note as applicable, and depending on that conversation, add a future data task. Alternatively, if you just wanted to add a note, works exactly the same way as a phone call. Click the note icon. You can add a note as applicable, and you can add a future data task based on that particular note. They all work the same way. So just with the pipeline for agents, this pipeline, same thing you can call from here. This is essentially my chase list. So if I want to call any of the people in my appraisals, I would tap into here. If I want to call the owner of this particular property, if I click Tony's name to get his contact details, there's his phone number. I can pick up the phone, I can give him a call. After the call, if I've had a great conversation, I could shoot him an email. I could send him an SMS, but generally in Agentbox, after the phone call, I'm looking for the phone icon to log the outcome of that call. Put in the note, depending on the conversation, add a future data task. Alternatively, if you wanted to add a task, so none of the appraisals falls through the cracks, click their name, and again, you can go to the circle, the tick to add that task. So I've shown you how to add tasks in the app. I've shown you how to add tasks in the desktop. You're looking for the phone icon or the circle, the tick. I just want to finally finish on how to action tasks. Now, as I said, the tasks pop through to the reminders panel on that nominated date. And I find agents are often actioning tasks, but they're not completing tasks. And the tasks sort of overwhelm them a little bit. Firstly, if I come into the office and I see here, today, Tuesday the 7th, I've got a heap of tasks. I would literally, when I'm out and around on the road, open up the app and just call directly from the app. If I'm working behind the computer, the key thing is don't try and action the task here. If you click into the task from here, this is where you can edit the task. I don't want to edit. I want to send an SMS. I want to send an email. I want to call, etc. The key thing is when you see you've got a heap of tasks, is you go to this icon down the bottom, tasks. This is where you can see your outstanding tasks and your completed tasks. And with your outstanding tasks, you can filter down and just focus on today's tasks. But let's just briefly talk about how I could action these tasks. Now, if I don't have time to action a task, just like in the app, you can come across to the clock and you could postpone a task. So I won't send Steve Rogers a happy birthday SMS today. Couldn't, I'll do it next week. So to work through and call, I've got an appraisal follow-up with Jason, a follow-up call Braxton, follow-up call Marku. Click the name, get the phone number, make your call. At the end of the call, generally in Agentbox, you're looking for the phone icon to log the outcome of that call. Put in the note as applicable. Depending on the conversation, you'll add another task if it's applicable. And finally, because you successfully got through, mark this particular task as complete and it drops off. And just repeat the process. So now call Braxton, there's his number, make my call. At the end of the call, click the phone icon, log the outcome of the call, add another task. And finally, if I successfully got through, I'll mark that task as complete. Finally, I want to call Marku. This is often a great starting point as well. So I can see here that I don't have an email address for Marku. So whilst I'm talking to him, if I want to update his contact card to improve the quality of our database, the eye icon takes me into his contact card. And I'll go in and update that email address as applicable. And I can still log the outcome of the call from here. So I'll update the email address, save the record, click the phone icon, log the outcome of the call, potentially add another task, and then return back to this particular screen, mark this particular task as complete. So that's one of the keys working from this screen down the bottom is I can call Kristen from here, log the outcome of the call, mark that task as complete, and just simply move on. If whilst I'm talking to Michael, if I want to drill into his contact card, update his contact card, I can. If I want to drill into his property and update his property, I could update his property from here as well. So just to wrap this up, guys, I've covered a lot. Just as a quick recap, if you want to review this webinar, because there are a lot of different tips in varying areas, we're going to restore the webinar in the user manual. So go to the question mark into the user manual and just type in tips and tricks, or just type in the keyword webinar. And you'll be able to search for the webinar. Now, I'll just flick back. I mentioned there are two reasons to use a CRM such as Agentbox: to save time and to make money. That's why I want to finish with one final tip. So if you're underusing your CRM and not taking advantage of what it offers, look, I do recommend investing in training. Now, training, we can help one-to-one. We can help with team training. It's something I'm doing regularly with clients on a weekly basis, etc. And the clients I'm working with and our team are working with get huge value out of the training. But obviously we run monthly webinars. I've shown you where you can register for those. We've got the Agentbox Academy for new starters, and we run Zoom sessions, on-site training. If you're wanting to have a discussion and you're wanting to look at even potentially building a training plan for your particular office, send us an email. We can reach out and we can discuss through your requirements. Our email address, training@agentbox.com.au. I just want to finish, guys, in the chat. Please, the lovely Tash will drop a survey on today's webinar. So if you please look at the chat, there's a link. Just click on that link. Up comes a survey. It literally will take you 10 to 15 seconds. If you could just fill that in, that's much appreciated. Now, if you've got any final questions, we will stay online for the next 5 minutes. If you don't have any questions, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for attending. I hope you learned something new in this webinar. And other than that, have a fantastic week. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, William. Thank you, Eric, Candice, Sarah. Thank you, Deborah. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, O'Brien Real Estate Clark. Thanks, Hamish. Thank you, Chanel. And Susie, I will have an awesome afternoon. Again, if you've got any questions, guys, just put them in the Q&A panel. Thanks, Mark from McKay. Michelle, how do you delete a bulk number of tasks in one go? Let me briefly show you. So if we go to tasks down the bottom, and if I don't actually have any overdue, now if I deem a task no longer necessary, I can click the bin icon to delete an individual task. If I want to delete multiples, I can select multiples and I could then bin them. Or if I click the tick option up the top for today, I could delete all 5. I mean, these are not overdue tasks, but often I find agents will have overdue ones which are a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. They're the ones you want to delete or potentially review them. Does that answer your question, Michelle? Tasks, and you can select this checkbox up the top and it'll select all for a page. You could have potentially a number of pages of tasks. Cool. Thank you for the question, Michelle. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Really good. Something really cool, a good tool that we're using on a daily basis. Thank you. Thank you again. Okay, we'll close down the webinar, guys. Thank you again for attending. Have an amazing week.